There's nothing more upsetting than an aesthetically pleasing looking TCG archetype being horrendous. Vendreads is that archetype made out of failed dreams and hope. It was already a tough climb as Konami was trying to figure out how to make ritual monsters successful. How you make a dark deck with the most graveyard-resourceful archetype in zombies terrible is beyond human comprehension. There's definitely more to the case, as we'll explain in today's video on the failed cards and mechanics of Vendreads. The origin of Vendread starts in Code of the Duelist with 5 cards in the first wave. It wouldn't be a video about Vendreads without our main star, Vendread Slayer, a 2400 attack 0 defense zombie ritual monster that can be ritual summoned using any Vendread ritual spell card. When it battles with an opponent's monster, during damage calculation, its quick effect would let you banish 1 zombie monster from your graveyard to increase its attack by 300. And when it's sent to the graveyard, if it was ritual summoned, you can add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Then send 1 Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. The main ritual spell you would use is Vendread Origin, which can be used to ritual summon any Vendread ritual monster by attributing monsters from your hand or field and or banishing monsters from your graveyard whose levels equal or exceed the level of the monster you're ritual summoning. And if your Vendread Slayer was destroyed by battle or card effect, you could banish this card from the graveyard instead. Vendread Hoardhound and Vendread Revenants were also introduced in the archetype. If Hoard was in your grave, you could discard 1 card to special summon it from the grave with its hard once per turn effect, but it would be banished if it left the field. When used for ritual summon of a Vendread monster while on the field, it gives the ritual monster a quick effect to target and banish 1 spell trap your opponent controls once per turn. Revenants could be special summoned from the graveyard if your opponent destroyed it by battle or card effect, but banish it when it leaves the field. When used for a Vendread ritual monster while on the field, it gives the Vendread monster a quick effect to target and banish 1 of your opponent's special summon monsters. To finish up the first wave of support, we have Vendread Reorigin, which was a trapped card that targets 1 monster your opponent controls and tributes it. And if you do, you get to special summon a Vendread token with a level equal to the tributed monster's level, but you're locked into special summoning Vendread monsters only. Vendread's first wave of support suffered from what Yu-Gi-Oh community calls being mid. Vendread Slayer was hardly a monster worth ritual summoning, being battle phase oriented and only gaining a measly 300 attack at that when it specifically battles a monster. Even if its attack boost was permanent, a 300 attack boost isn't an investment worthy effect of a ritual monster. The main deck monsters had their setbacks too, being banished from the field when coming back and needing to be tributed while on the field to give Slayer their inherited effects. This made the ritual summoning for Vendreads complex, as using resources from the graveyard or hand with Origin netted you nothing. Most ritual decks lose a lot of resources to summon their ritual monsters in the first place. To possibly lose your monsters either through Origin banishing them, or their effects banishing themselves and leaving you with a monster that's essentially vanilla beater isn't the making of a good archetype. Many people were making conspiracy theories on why the archetype started so bland. Maybe they didn't want to become a Necros clone, but wanted to see if they could make a unique ritual deck that could thrive just as well as Necrons did. Most likely, it was Konami heavily leaning on the fact that the archetype is dark zombies, and cards such as Mezuki, Gozuki, and Unizombie would be satisfactory enough to make Vendreads playable, which they sort of did. Either way, neither came to fruition as ritual monster decks with cards that pass on effects didn't perform well. And on top of that, zombies can't really help you keep your resources when your resources keep banishing themselves. That seemed to be definitely ignored, as they wanted to see if this style of play worked. All they had to do was look at BLS and Demise to see both of these decks coming soon on our Failed Cards and Mechanics series. So, the first wave made the impact of a puddle, but the community was hopeful for the deck to get better over time. We wish someone would have crushed these hopes because the next round of support was just as mid. Popping their decomposing figures and Circuit Break, we have 4 new cards. One of them being their new ritual monster at the time, Vendread Chimera, a level 5 ritual monster that can be summoned with any Vendread ritual spell. When a card that destroys cards in the field is activated, you can banish a zombie monster from your graveyard to negate that card and destroy it. If Chimera is tributed or banished for a ritual summon, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. Vendread Sturges was a level 1 zombie monster that you can special summon from your graveyard if it's sent there by revealing a Vendread monster from your hand. It also gives a special ability to your ritual monster if it's used on the field that allows you to draw 1 card and then discard a card after your monster battles an opponent's monster. Vendread Knights was their new field spell that lets you discard 1 card to add a Vendread monster from your deck to hand. When a Vendread monster destroys a monster by battle, you can banish a Vendread monster from your graveyard to attack once again in a row. And finally, Vendread Reunion rounded up the new cards. This card lets you reveal a Vendread ritual monster and then special summon any number of your Vendread monsters that are banished to your side of the field face down, equal to the level of the revealed monster. Then ritual summon the revealed monster using those face down monsters. You must also be able to ritual summon to resolve this effect. To make things worse, Konami didn't fix any of the problems with this archetype, but managed to make them even worse. Chimera was almost unplayable, with his effect only being able to stop destruction effects and a meager attack and defense reduction that hardly made it worth a tribute. Knight's search effect was decent and gave an extra attack to your monsters, but it didn't help that it could only search Vendread monsters. and had a cost for both its search and attacking costs when you have a Vendread monster. Sturge's special summoning effect was better than Hound Horde and Revenants, but its low level and the ability it gave your ritual monster was laughable. Also, the monster needed to be on the field like Hound Horde and Revenants to activate its effect. To finish off why Vendreads suck, Reunion was an unsearchable trap card that had no good options to use with this effect, and it needed a complicated setup with you needing to specifically summon the exact required amount of monsters equal to its level, and then being forced to use only those monsters. So, no Slayer if all you have is Sturges and Hound Hordes banished. You'd have a dead trap card waiting for your setup. The egregious part was that almost every card had either a cost or banished resource from your graveyard. Things were looking dim for Vendreads. Once again, the support it gained did more harm than good, and good zombie and dark support were the only things keeping the deck on life support. The deck had too many holes and was more punishing to play than rewarding. A ritual deck that can't upkeep its resources and is designed with mediocre ritual monsters as a payoff is often enough reason for people to put the deck down. Still, hope lingered that one day our Spawn/Resident Evil reference monsters would pull through and be the dominant force that we dreamed it to be. Konami gave us a bit of hope when they brought out new support in Extreme Force, but it was just a slither. Vendread Battlelord made its appearance. Like the other Vendread rituals, you could use any Vendread ritual to summon it. You can banish one Vendread card and declare one type of card, either monsters, spells, or traps. And for the rest of the turn, your opponent can't activate cards or effects with that type. When this ritual summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a ritual monster from your deck to your hand, then send a Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. The deck was given a solid but perfect main deck monster in Vendread Core. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish one of the zombie type monsters from your grave to special summon it, but it's banished when it leaves the field. When used in a ritual summon of a Vendread while it's on the field, your monsters will have the ability to not be targeted by card effects. Vendread Charge is a quick play that lets you send one zombie monster from your hand or face of field to the graveyard to special summon a Vendread monster from your deck. And finally, Vendread Revolution is a trap card that makes you discard one to target a Vendread monster and a ritual spell in your graveyard and special summon in defense position. And if you do, add the ritual spell to your hand. You can also banish this card from your grave to target 5 banished zombie monsters and return them to the deck to draw 1 card. It was a start in the right direction. Outside of Revolution, Core, Charge, and Battlelord absolutely saw play. However, they still had drawbacks. Battlelord was decent, but its effect was an ignition effect that also cost you a Vendread card to use and could be interrupted by your opponent. Think of it more of a wish value version of Shockmaster. It was also pretty useless outside of your opening turn, or if you're going into the battle phase and making use of this effect to call traps. The main combo that Konami probably expects players to do was to use this card with Reunion to special this card on your opponent's turn to interrupt their plays. Still, due to Reunion being unsearchable and requiring a strict setup, this combo never came to fruition. Core was all around great with easy requirements to get special summoned, but once again, it went through the requirement that all the main deck monsters went through by needing to be on the field to pass its effect to your ritual monster. Being a level 1 monster also didn't help this card, as it meant you needed to use more than 3 resources to special summon cards like Battlelord and Slayer. The next set, Flames of Eternity, saw that Vendread would continue to be mediocre. Another Vendread ritual monster would make its appearance, Vendread Executor. It needed a Vendread ritual spell to be summoned, and its name was treated as Vendread Slayer while it was on the field. While this face-up ritual summon card is on the field, your opponent can't target cards you control with card effects except this card. When this card is destroyed by an opponent via battle or card effect while it's in your monster zone, you can add a Vendread monster from your deck to hand. Vendread Anima was also introduced in Flames of Eternity. You can banish it from your grave to target one banished Vendread monster and special summon it, but you can't special summon any monsters for the rest of the turn except for zombie monsters. It also has the same effect as the rest of the main deck effect monsters, giving your Vendread ritual monster the ability to banish any monster it destroys in battle. Your Vendread Evolution was a new ritual spell card that could be used to special summon any Vendread ritual monster from hand or grave by tributing monsters from hand, field, and or Vendread monsters from your deck, but destroys the monster during the end phase of the next turn. Vendread Nightmare was a continuous spell that allowed you to tribute one or more Vendread monsters from your hand or field to target and increase the level of one of your Vendread monsters by the number of monsters tributed until the end of this turn. When your attacking Vendread monster destroys their monster by battle, it gains a permanent 1000 attack buff. Finally, Vendread Daybreak rounds out the new support. This trap card allows you to choose one ritual summon Vendread monster and then destroy all cards in the field if your opponent controls more cards than you do. The selected monster cannot attack directly. Once again, the Vendread support did less punching the enemy and more shooting themselves in the foot. Executor's payoff was underwhelming. A level 8 ritual that's payoff was protection for everything except itself, and an oxymoronic search when it dies, made this card unappealing. Add to the fact that you'd have to use more resources that might be banished after ritual summoning this card, and it's tough to warrant adding this card to your deck. The format even made it worse because targeting effects weren't as good as they used to be, and players were using other ways to eliminate monsters on the field. Let's not even get started on evolution. Even though it lets you send monsters from the deck for the ritual summon of your Vendread monsters, the fact that your monster had to be a Vendread monster made it a weak ritual spell option, as once again, your Vendread monsters need to see the field to give your monsters buffs. Also, for a deck that lacks keeping resources, the last thing your ritual spell needs to do is pop your monsters at the end of the next turn. Anima did a lot for the deck, but its low level made it difficult to use for ritual summoning, and its inheritable effect was near useless, needing to battle a monster to be effective. Vendread Nightmare was, as the card says, a nightmare, and Daybreak was so-so as it didn't allow your monsters to attack directly. At this point, Vendreads was a bust, only being kept alive by the fact they could be used with generic zombie support to make links or synchro plays. But even zombies were tired of dragging these zombies, and when the new zombie support came in the 2018 structure deck Zombie Horde, most players completely dropped the Vendread engine out of decks for a better, more consistent engine, a better strategy, and a stronger overall boss monster. The cool cape and awesome references weren't enough to keep the TCG community interested in the archetype. 2019 Vendread received support in the TCG Battle of Legends Heroes Revenge. A Vendread Savior was a link monster with 1600 attack with both link arrows pointing diagonally left and right. It requires 2 zombie monsters and is treated as a Vendread Slayer while in the field. It has 2 effects it can use once per turn, where you could either return a Vendread card from your graveyard to hand, or send a zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard to reduce the attack of an opponent's monster that's battling this card during damage calculation by the level the monster sent to the graveyard times 200 until the end of the turn. While this card gave Vendread an extra deck option, it didn't fix the underlying problems of Vendread Ravenous resource consumptions. It was a card that was basically just generic zombie support for being able to send zombies from your deck to the graveyard. It wouldn't be until 3 years later that Vendread would get its final leg of support, and of course, it's the best support to date. In the 2022 TCG set Power of the Elements, Vendread got 3 new cards. Scar of the Vendread was a level 6 zombie monster, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Vendread spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can also banish a zombie from your graveyard to summon this card from the grave, but it's banished when it leaves the field. The ritual Vendread Scavenger was a level 8 ritual monster that had the same summon requirement all Vendread ritual monsters have. And during the main phase, you can use its quick effect to tribute one other zombie monster to have it gain attack equal to the tributed monster's original attack. Also, if you control a Vendread Slayer, you can spell summon this card from your graveyard. Finally, to make this support a success, Ravenous Vendread was their new ritual spell that lets you special summon one Vendread monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard face down. Then you can ritual summon any Vendread ritual monster from your hand or graveyard by using materials on the field, including the face down monster summoned by this effect whose level is equal to or exceeds it. All of Vendread's woes were simply answered with Ravenous Vendread. There's no way to underestimate how powerful of an effect this card was with its ability to fetch you any non-ritual Vendread monster from anywhere, including straight from your deck, without drawbacks or restrictions. Effects like these don't usually stay in the game without getting banned or hit. If you don't believe us, just look at cards like Summon Sorceress and A Hero Lives, which fetch cards directly from the deck, yet they even had to have restrictions or costs when bringing up monsters from the deck. Those restrictions still didn't stop Konami from banning or eliminating these cards. So for Vendreads to still have this really powerful card to this day is a testament to how much of a failure the Vendread archetype is. So why did Vendreads take such a mean L? Well, being a resource-heavy ritual deck didn't help. Having materials that banishes itself doesn't make for great upkeep, which is a shame since it had one of the best resourceful archetype engines in zombies and even had access to cards like pre-prep. What was this deck's biggest downfall was the constant cost that almost every Vendread card had. Bring back a Vendread from the graveyard? Banish it. Use Battlelord's effect? Banish a Vendread. Need to gain an attack boost? Banish a monster. No deck can operate with a mechanic who loses so many resources without any way to regain those resources. When your deck punishes itself without your opponent's help, you know you have a problem. Finally, let's not forget that the boss monsters were mediocre. Slayer, Chimera, Battlelord, and Executor made Relinquish look like an Uber tier card. The investment wasn't worth the reward for so many resources being used to bring them out. Even if the Vendread monsters used for the ritual summoning gave them abilities, it would have been nice to have an ability that put your opponent on their back heels. At best, Battlelord was a slight hindrance for a turn, and Executor was just a huge card that protected your cards. Surprisingly, even with all of these flaws, Vendread still sees play occasionally, thanks to the beautiful world of Master Duel and its NR format, where the deck was tier 1. With your NR dust, feel free to build this deck, as most of the pieces are just commons and rares. They even incorporate incantation cards like Pencil Plume and Inception to make up for whatever search power isn't obtainable due to the rarity. Also, the in-art format is less punishing to monsters that are more or less beatsticks, making it easier to operate using Vendread Slayer. Is it the outcome that you'd want for the archetype? Not really, but it's about as good as you can get until they decide to make more support to help our brooding friend Slayer. Until that help comes, Vendread broods itself into the hall of failed cards and mechanics.